Let me welcome everyone who's on Zoom and those who are here in person. Thank you very much for being here for this early session as well. This is the 10th iteration of this program at Agnes Scott College. It's been going on for 14 years. Otherwise, we had informal readings before that, but formally, this is our 10th anniversary. And I would um, ask our chair, uh, Bobby Meyers-Lee, chair of the English department, to welcome and say some words of welcome here. And over to you, Bobby.
Okay, great, thanks. Well, greetings to everyone, if there's anybody in Decatur, but of course around the world as well. My name is Bobby Meyers-Lee, and I'm the chair of the English department, and I'm thrilled to give this welcome to, as Waqas said, the 14th annual 100,000 Poets for Change poetry reading, and the 10th here held at Agnes Scott College. So I'm sure that many of you have likely participated in or attended this event before, and perhaps numerous times. But just for the old timers and first timers alike, it's worth recalling that 100,000 Poets for Change is an international organization that was founded back in 2011 by Michael Rothenberg and Terry Carrion. Sadly, Michael passed away in 2022. The mission of 100,000 Poets for Change is to realize a global presence for poetry promoting peace, sustainability, and justice, and calling for social, environmental, and political change. The organization strives, in short, to promote both activism and poetry by demonstrating the power of their combination. Through 2019, the organization achieved its mission by orchestrating a coordinated set of poetry readings held on the same day at various locations around the world. With the pandemic, this effort did not end, but was rather supplemented. As everyone will remember, we all learned that the term hybrid named not just a post-colonial concept, but also a mode of accessibility that, however imperfect, could bring together the local and global with unprecedented immediacy. So as today's really impressive lineup of readers attests, the 100,000 Poets for Change event at Agnes Scott is doubly global, both across the readings hosted in various places around the world and within those readings as well. The result, if in the capable hands of Waqas and Calvin, if we can pull it off, will be an interwoven international tapestry of activist poetry. I don't think I need to remind anyone listening of the urgency at this moment of joining hands to celebrate and affirm the value of activist poetry, as we live in a time when powerful forces are seeking the suppression of exactly that. From a Florida elementary school's banning of Amanda Gorman's inauguration poem to a U.S. senators accusing the Navy of being "quote unquote" woke because they are, as he put it, doing poems on aircraft carriers over a loudspeaker. The forces aligned against activist poetry are great, and yet the very intensity of this onslaught is a testament to the power of this poetry, and so it calls us to continue to give voice to that which these forces seek to suppress. Here at Agnes Scott, this event was made possible by generous financial support from the James T. and Ella Rather Kirk Fund, which was established by alumna, artist, writer, and trustee Mary Wallace Kirk in honor of her parents. The Kirk Fund supports and enriches academic programs in history, music, literature, art, and philosophy. Thanks are also due to Agnes Scott's peerless events and communications coordinator, Leah Owenby, and to the extraordinary efforts of IT expert Calvin Bergamy. And of course, the largest credit goes, as always, to my colleague in the English department, Ellen Douglas Leyburn Professor of English, Waqas Khwaja, man who does everything: scholar, poet, translator, editor, and teacher. Dr. Khwaja has somehow found time year after year for 10 years now to organize and host this increasingly complex event. And so I will be turning the mic back over to him in a second, but first, I'll begin the reading itself with a poem of sorts. Most English professors that I know have deep anxieties about the areas of literature about which they know relatively little. And so for me, that is true in respect to contemporary poetry. So instead of wandering that direction, I'm going to turn to what I do know, which is late medieval English poetry. So here's a bit of context for what I'm going to read. In late medieval England, war and political strife were as ubiquitous as today, if not more so. In response, poets who then lacked a tradition for meditating directly on their experiences often turned to the imagined past. And in particular, the story of the Trojan War frequently served as a vehicle for exploring the causes, costs, and consequences of human conflict. In the year 1420, the poet John Lydgate completed a massive 30,000 line poetic account of the Trojan War, all of which I'm not going to read. um, Lydgate takes that war and shears away its mythical apparatus and treats it as a brutal, disastrous military misadventure of enormous scale. Near the end of the fourth of the poem's five books, following his narration of the destruction of Troy, he supplies a lamentation for Troy and the ideals of human achievement that it represented. So I'm going to read a portion of this lamentation in its original Middle English, which will perhaps be obscure to most of you, but I hope the Middle English will convey its emotional tenor. Lydgate was admittedly a poet of limited abilities, but these are, I think, among his best lines. And so here we go. This is Lydgate. Nu farewell, Troy, farewell forevermore. Farewell, alas, to cruel was the fall. Of they no more nu irrita shall, for thee sac and sotha when e tak hede, of inward woe min herte I feel blede, and when that I remember in me thought, be ruin who thou art brought to naught, that Willem were so noble and so richer, that in this world I trowe none was richer, nor per ego, to speak of fairness, to speak of knighthood and of worthiness, as clerkes seinen that be building knue, that all the world ought for to rue. On thee pittes was the walls Wilhelm so real when that man gone to build the Turus hair and King Priamus they first began most rich and glorious and set his say a noble Ilion. Oh, who can leak a lamentation convenient o Troia for the Saka, or who can now waver or sorrow make the great mischief to complain and clear? And that is John Lydgate.
Thank you very much, Bobby. And what an evocative poem that echoes through all these centuries to our own times as well. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for sharing that in its original language. So that is marvelous Old English. That is. So we will now begin with our reading program. So our first reader actually is exempt from that, and she has 10 minutes. And her name, of course, is Lucilla Trapazzo. I would invite her to come and share her poems with us. But before that, let me introduce her as well. She is from Italy originally, but now settled in Switzerland, poet, translator, artist, and performer. After years spent abroad for study and work, she now divides her days between Switzerland, Italy, and New York City. To her credit, she has 6 books of poetry, a series of translations of international poets, numerous literary collaborations with magazines and poetry anthologies, and a CD with compositions by Marco di Stefano, inspired by her poems. Her poems, translated into 18 languages, have won major international awards, including Poet Laureate Kurora e Poesie at Korka International Festival, Albania 2023, and she regularly participates in international poetry and art festivals, among which Struga Poetry Evenings, North Macedonia, Princeton Festival, USA, uh, Babylon International Festival of the Arts, Iraq, Kistrek International Festival, Kenya, are some of the most prominent ones. Strong advocate for human rights and the planet, her social and feminine point of view is reflected in many of her writings.
Thank you, Wakas. Thank you, Agnes Scott College, for organizing this. Being the first one starting the online session, I feel a little bit challenged and nicely challenged. So poetry has, for me, a profound potential, like music, to transform, to bridge divide, to heal and bring peace, both inner and among people. And so this is my attempt to it. I changed a couple of poems. I read only 4 instead of 6. Somewhere at the edge of the kingdom, dissonant shreds intertwine again, profane trajectories, curved lines that tear poppies of blood, while the bright dream of a single home stumbles on the closed gates. We burn, we burn, we burn on the balconies, we burn, slammed against the walls, we burn on the barbed wire, we burn on the barbed wire lives, we burn on the barbed wire lives clothes, we burn on the barbed wire lives, clothes and rocks hang out to dry, we burn. And these eternal coming and going of hisses, of horrors, of agony, so mercy. I put the morning in my backpack. In the silence, we lose people, their names scream in the grass, and each one son of an orphan mother, oh, their names. But from here, from this bird flight view, the world is still home, spring, without languages, without borders, and how blue the sky still is. We all carry a stone on the first vertebrae. Now one a little bit more personal. My mother didn't go slowly. I see her lips and her eyes again her breath, my mother again, returns on the retina, asking for air. And again, you are a daughter, my mother, a handful of time, and her eyes, her lungs, her body, her body, primordial forces clinging to life. Her eyes and her lungs were begging for air. And I, helplessly, was hunting a word, my hand, my arm that lifted her up at night, turning her body, fixing the oxygen tubes. Oh, we conjugate with gestures, the language of love. And then you no longer are a daughter, suspended, without bread, without land. The prelude of blackbirds in the sky is drawing the quavers, faint, intermittent signals, once again calling for life at dawn in the red of the day. The next one is for my daughter. Raindrops on roses and whiskers on kittens, bright copper kettles and warm woolen mittens, brown paper packages tied up with string. My daughter doesn't like stripes. Mom, you dress like a pirate, surprised and a bit chanting, used to tell me as a child. I, on the contrary, wear them everywhere. Stripes on sweaters, stripes on scarves, stripes on trousers, stripes vertically, though, to sublimate height, or stripes, wide stripes, narrow stripes, stripes intermittent, parallel and perpendicular, in cacophony of sound and color stripes, but also in black and white when necessary. Stripes, stripes, stripes. What a chaos, what a delight. My daughter, on the other hand, loves straight lines. 2, 3, 5, 7, defined by 2 points, 11, that don't change reason with the folding of a river, 13. She loves asymptotes and ellipses, 17, 19, and she loves the mice of her laboratory and bacteria in anaerobic chambers, 23, 29, 31. My daughter loves precise numbers, 37, 41, 43, coherent cosmic spirals that both of us surprise and rise. They rise, up they go in geometry of stars. 47, 55, and maybe there in the dust of the cosmos, maybe there one day. That's where we'll meet. Now I want to close with a poem that is a little bit, it's my spiritual testament somehow. And I hope when I'm gone, I would like to return as water, and as water flow and flow, murmuring time from the beginning, to be Alpha and Omega every here and now, to be cradle for the trilobites. Of the first tree, I will wet the roots abundantly. I'll roll down the back of a T-Rex of pure truth. I will shield volcanoes running loudly through the clouds between the seas. Oh, to be mirror for the first woman who lingers by the river, for the first flower, for a first flower among her unkempt hair, and droplets of saliva in a first kiss under a willow tree, sliding fresh into the parched throat simply, like bread and oil, bringing as gift the humble life of sunny fields. And then rinse and wash and rinse and wash all the blood along all the time, rinse, cleanse the impure seeds spilled by dominion. I'll rise with a scream of women in the circle of the moon. Next, I will find myself on another planet, on another sparkling, pulsating dot at the dawn of a new galaxy, starting life anew. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Lucilla. Really appreciate your poems, your contribution, very moving poems that we heard from you.